Jack, Will, Julian, and Charlotte. We followed Mr. Tushman into a small room across from Mrs. Garcia's desk. He was talking as he closed the door to his office and sat down behind his big desk. Though I wasn't really paying much attention to what he was saying, I was I was looking around at all the things on his desk, cool stuff, like a global that floated in the air, and a Rubik's type cube made with little mirrors. I liked his office a lot. I liked students on the walls from, from like they were important. Mom sat down in a chair in front of Mr. Tushman's desk, and even though there was another chair right next to hers, I decided to stand beside her. Why do I have your own room and Mrs. G doesn't? I said. You mean why do I have an office? Asked Mr. Tushman. You said she runs the place. I said, oh, well, I was kind of kidding. Mrs. G is my assistant. Mr. Tushman is the director of middle school, Mom explained. Do they call you Mr. T? I asked, which made him smile. Do you know who Mr. T is? He answered. I pity the fool, he said in a funny, tough voice, like was imitating someone. I had no idea what he was talking about. Anyway, no, Mr. Tushman, said Mr. Tushman, shaking his hand. No one calls me Mr. T, though. I have a feeling I'm called a lot of other things I don't know about. Let's face it, a name like mine is not so easy to live with. You know what I mean. Here I have to admit I totally laughed because I know exactly what he meant. My mom and dad had a teacher called Mrs. Butt. Miss Butt, I said. Augie, said Mom, but Mr. Tushman laughed. Now that's bad, Mr. Tushman, shaking his hand. I guess I shouldn't complain. Hey, so listen, August. Here's what I thought you would do today. Is that a pumpkin? I said, pointing to a farmed painting behind Mr. Tushman's desk. Augie, sweetie, don't interrupt, said Mom. You like it? Said Mr. Tushman, turning around and looking at the painting. I do, too. And I thought it was a pumpkin, too, until the student who gave it to me explained that it is actually not pumpkin. It is. Are you ready for this? A portrait of me. Now, August, I ask you, do I really look that much like a pumpkin? No, I answered, though I was thinking, yes, something about the way his cheeks puffed out when he smiled made me how funny that was, cheeks, Mr. Tushman, and I started laughing a little. I shook my head and covered my mouth with my hand. Mr. Tushman smiled like he could read my mind. I was about to say something else, but then, all of a sudden, I heard other voices out outside. The office kid's voice. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, but my heart literally started beating. Inside just poured out of me. The thing in when I was little, I never minded meeting new kids because all the kids I met were really little. To what's cool What's cool about really little kids is that they don't say stuff to try to hurt your feelings, and even though sometimes they do say stuff that hurts your feelings, but they don't actually know what they was saying. Big kids do. They know what they're saying, and that is definitely not fun for me. One of the reasons I grew my hair long last year was that I like how my bangs cover my eyes. It helps me block out the things I don't want to see. Mrs. Garcia knocked on the door and poked her head inside. "They're here, Mr. Tushman," she said. "Who's here?" I said. "Thanks," said Mr. Tushman to Mrs. Garcia. "August, I thought it would be good idea for you meet some students who'll be in your homeroom this year. I figured they could take you around the school a bit, show you the lay of the land, so to speak." "I don't want to meet anyone," I said to Mom. Mr. Tushman was suddenly right in front of me, his hands on my shoulders. He leaned down and said very softly in my ear, "It'll be okay, August. These are nice kids, I promise." "You're going to be okay, Augie," Mom whispered with all her might. Before she could say anything else, Mr. Tushman opened the door to his office. "Come on in, kids," he said, and it walked two boys and a girl. None of them looked over at me or Mom. They stood by a door, looking straight at Mr. Tushman like their lives depended on it. "Thanks," So much for coming, guys, especially since school doesn't start until next month, said Mr. Tushman. Have you had a good summer? All of them nodded, but no one said anything. Great, great, said Mr. Tushman. So guys, I wanted you I wanted to meet August. He's going to be a new student here this year. August, these guys have been students of Beecher Prep since kindergarten, though, of course, they were in a lower school building, but they know all the ins and outs of the middle school program. And since you're all in the same homeroom, I thought it would be nice if you got to know each other a little before school started. Okay, so kids, this is August. August, this is Jack Will. Jack Will looked at me and put out his hand. When he shook it, he kind of half smiled and said, "Hey," and looked down really fast.